The first time I understood that my husband might actually choose to let me die, he was standing 3 feet from my hospital bed, reading a message from his mistress. I was 34 weeks pregnant. I was bleeding, and our daughter's heart rate had just dropped low enough to erase the practiced smile from the nurse beside me. Adrian looked at the monitor, then at his phone. I saw the name reflected backward in the stainless steel tray near my bed. Claire Bennett, his communications director, the woman who had eaten Christmas dinner in my house 6 months earlier and complimented the nursery curtains. Beneath her name were 6 words. I need you. Come now, please. Mr. Vale, the resident said, watching the fetal monitor, I need you to stay close. If the heart rate drops again, we may have to move quickly. Adrian slid the phone into his pocket. For one stupid, hopeful second, relief went through me. Then he reached for his coat. Don't go. My voice came out small. I hated that almost as much as the fear. Adrian Vale did not like small voices. He respected certainty, leverage, people who entered rooms as though somebody had already signed the building over to them. For 6 years I had learned how to be that woman beside him. That night, wearing a hospital gown that refused to cover both dignity and anatomy at the same time, I wasn't her. 40 minutes earlier, I had been barefoot in the bathroom of our Back Bay townhouse when a sharp pain folded me against the sink. Then I saw blood. Too much. Adrian had driven me to Massachusetts General himself, running 2 red lights and gripping my hand so tightly my wedding ring pressed into my skin. Stay with me, he kept saying. I thought he meant it. Now he buttoned his coat. I'll be back in 10 minutes. You heard the doctor? I heard him. Then why are you leaving? His jaw tightened. I knew that movement. It meant the decision had already been made and further discussion had been downgraded to background noise. I used to find that quality reassuring. People around Adrian obeyed quickly. Dock supervisors, attorneys, union men, city officials who somehow became friendlier after private dinners. His legitimate business was freight and logistics. The other side of his business was something nobody named directly. People simply called Adrian when containers needed to move, permits needed to appear, or somebody needed to reconsider a decision. I had spent 6 years pretending not to understand the difference. Claire's in trouble, he said. I laughed once. It sounded terrible. Of course she is. Elena, I'm bleeding. I can see that. And somehow she still has the bigger emergency? You don't understand what's happening. Then explain it. He didn't. Another contraction tore through me. I grabbed the rail and folded forward. Adrian reached for my shoulder. I slapped his hand away. Not hard, just enough. We both stared at my hand afterward. I said, don't go. For a moment, his face changed. I saw guilt. Or maybe I wanted to. Elena, I will come back. The resident stepped closer. Mr. Vale? I said I'll be back. He said it to the doctor, not me. Then Adrian bent down and kissed my forehead. His lips were warm, his hand was perfectly steady. I promise. He walked out. The door clicked shut. I stared at it. 1 second, 2, 3. The fetal monitor began screaming. The nurse spun toward it. Doctor. Suddenly everybody moved. They lowered the bed, rolled me onto my left side, adjusted the monitors, and pushed something into my IV. What's happening? Nobody answered immediately. That is the strange thing about real terror. It doesn't make the world dramatic. It makes it stupidly specific. I noticed a coffee stain on the resident's sleeve. A crack in the ceiling tile. 1 compression sock on my left leg while my right foot remained completely naked. Apparently, I was prepared for a medical emergency from only 1 ankle down. Your baby's heart rate is dropping, the nurse said. We're trying to stabilize her. Her. My daughter. Adrian and I had agreed not to tell anyone the sex. One private thing in a life where privacy had become increasingly theoretical. I pressed both hands against my stomach. Come on, sweetheart. My voice cracked. Please. The attending physician came in quickly. Elena, we may be dealing with a partial placental abruption. If the baby doesn't recover, we may need to deliver tonight. Tonight? Possibly. I looked at the door again, still expecting Adrian. That embarrassed me. Is there someone else we should call? The nurse asked. Someone else. 2 ordinary words. 6 years of marriage collapsed inside them. My sister. Rebecca and I had barely spoken in 3 months. She had never trusted Adrian. Once she told me marrying him was like adopting a wolf because it looked lonely. I called her melodramatic. She said wolves probably said that too. 25 minutes later, my daughter's heart rate finally climbed. Not normal. Better. I reached for my phone. Nothing from Adrian. I typed, "They may have to deliver her." Deleted it. "Where are you?" Deleted that too. Finally, "Your daughter is in distress." Sent. Delivered. No reply. Rebecca arrived almost an hour later wearing gray sweatpants, a winter coat over pajamas, one running shoe and one house slipper. I looked at her feet. "This is what you chose to judge my marriage in? Traffic was bad. You forgot a shoe. I was under pressure." Then she saw my face. Everything funny left hers. She came to the bed and took my hand. "Where is he?" I looked away. "Oh, Elena, don't. I didn't say anything." "You were about to." "I was going to say I'm here." One tear slipped into my hair. That was all. My phone buzzed. "Adrian, finally." I grabbed it. "I'm handling something important. Baby okay?" Then another message appeared. "She's stable. I'll stay with you tonight." I stopped breathing. The message vanished almost immediately. Deleted. But Rebecca had seen it too. Neither of us spoke. My daughter kicked beneath my palm. Small, hard, alive. I stared at the empty space where Adrian's message had been. What I didn't know then was that Claire had not called him because she was frightened or lonely. She had been inside a seaport hotel room with Luca Moretti, Adrian's former partner and most dangerous enemy, preparing to hand over a ledger connecting Adrian's port companies to years of laundering, intimidation payments, and the destruction of the Moretti family. Adrian hadn't left me simply because he wanted his mistress. He had left because Claire possessed something capable of destroying his empire. I wouldn't learn that until later. That night, all I knew was simpler. When Adrian had been forced to choose between his wife, his unborn daughter, and whatever waited behind Claire's message, he had chosen the secret. And while Rebecca held my hand beneath those fluorescent hospital lights, I stopped waiting for my husband to come back. I started wondering what kind of man I had actually married. By sunrise, rage had thinned into something colder. Questions. Where had Adrian gone after leaving me? What exactly had Claire been holding over him? And why had he looked more afraid of her message than of our daughter's heart rate dropping? Rebecca was asleep in the chair beside me, one sneaker still on, one house slipper hanging from her other foot. I watched the gray Boston morning creep across the window and replayed Adrian's accidental text until the words stopped feeling like language. "She's stable. I'll stay with you tonight." At 9:17, Adrian finally walked in. Fresh white shirt, damp hair. That detail bothered me more than I expected. He had found time to shower, somewhere. Rebecca woke immediately. "Adrian, Rebecca." Her voice could have preserved meat. He ignored her and looked at me. "How are you?" "Still pregnant." His jaw tightened. "Elena, can we not do this here?" I glanced around the hospital room. "Sorry, is there somewhere more convenient to discuss you spending the night with your mistress?" Rebecca coughed into her fist. Adrian did not appreciate the performance. "Claire had a serious situation. So did your daughter." That landed. He sat. "I handled last night badly." "Badly? Elena? You left while a doctor was explaining that I might need an emergency delivery. I came back. At breakfast." Rebecca stepped closer. "Would you like a medal or parking validation?" "Stay out of this." "She stayed," I said. "You didn't." Silence. Adrian rubbed his face. "I'm sorry." He looked tired. For some reason, exhaustion irritated me more than guilt would have. He reached for my hand. I moved it away. For 6 years, touch had been his shortcut through conflict. A hand on my waist, a kiss on my forehead, his thumb moving over my knuckles while he told me everything was under control. I was starting to understand how often I had mistaken tenderness for truth. "I want Rebecca here." "Fine. And don't touch me unless I ask." A pause. "All right." Rebecca eventually left to find breakfast. Adrian walked to the window. I watched his reflection. "You slept with Claire." He didn't turn. "Elena, that wasn't a question." His shoulders dropped slightly. "Yes, I had imagined hearing it would destroy me. Instead, I felt strangely calm. How long? A few months. While I was pregnant? Yes, I nodded once, like he had confirmed a dentist appointment. Maybe pain reaches capacity too. Then his phone lit up on the tray beside my bed. Claire, I should not have looked. That is what I told myself later. But privacy felt like a privilege our marriage had already spent. The preview appeared. If the baby survives, we move to plan B. I picked up the phone. Adrian turned. Elena, I read the message again. If the baby survives? He crossed the room. Give me the phone. What is plan B? Give it to me. No, his hand stopped inches from mine. There it was again. Fear, not for me, for the information. Rebecca came back carrying breakfast bags. What happened? I kept my eyes on Adrian. Apparently our daughter surviving requires a backup plan. The color drained from his face. Then just as quickly he recovered. Claire received information about a threat to the family. Rebecca laughed. That is spectacularly convenient. It isn't. It got you out of the hospital. Adrian ignored her. There are security arrangements if Elena delivers early. What arrangements? I asked. Another residence? Additional guards? Medical security? And Claire controls this? She coordinates crisis response. She also coordinates your pants. Rebecca made a choking sound. Wrong moment. Still funny. Then my daughter shifted under my ribs and the humor disappeared. I handed Adrian the phone. Not because I believed him, because I had finally realized anger was less useful than observation. If Adrian thought I was only a betrayed wife, he might keep talking. If he knew I had begun seeing him as a threat, he would close every door. So I softened my voice. Is someone targeting the baby? No. You just said, I said there may be a threat to the family. From who? I'm handling it. There it was. The sentence our marriage had been built around. I'm handling it. Permits. Accounts. Men who came to dinner and never gave me last names. Phone calls that ended when I entered a room. Problems that disappeared before they reached me. For years, I had called that protection. For the first time, I wondered whether protection and control were sometimes the same thing, with better public relations. 3 days later, I was home on strict bed rest when an email arrived from our estate attorney. Revised Vale Family Trust. Confirmation. 43 pages. Legal language designed to make normal people surrender by page 6. I kept reading. Then I found the section concerning our unborn child. Upon the live birth of any biological child of Elena Vale, certain voting rights held through Russo Maritime Holdings would move into a protected descendant trust. Russo Maritime, my father's old company. I scrolled to the signature page. My name appeared at the bottom. Digitally signed. May 18th. I stared at the date. On May 18th, I had been in Napa for Rebecca's birthday. I had photographs, flight records, hotel receipts. I had signed nothing. When I called the attorney, his assistant tried to schedule a meeting with Adrian present. I don't need my husband. The trust concerns both parties. My signature is on it. Yes. So I'm asking about my signature. The attorney himself came on the line. Elena, these matters are complicated. Was my signature authenticated? This would be better discussed with Adrian. My skin went cold. You represent me. We represent the trust. Then whose interests are you actually protecting? He didn't answer. After I hung up, the doorbell rang. No one appeared on the security camera. Outside sat a cream envelope. Inside was an old photograph. Adrian stood beside Luca Moretti, younger, smiling, his arm around the man he had spent years calling his worst enemy. On the back was one sentence. Ask your husband why he needed me gone before he married you. I read it twice, then a third time. The affair had made me wonder when Adrian started lying. The photograph raised a worse possibility. Maybe he had been lying before our marriage even began. I hid Luca's photograph inside an old maternity cardigan Adrian hated. He once said it made me look like a substitute teacher. I told him that was rich coming from a man who owned 12 Navy suits and somehow believed each one carried a different emotional range. For 2 days, I acted normal. I ate oatmeal. Let the private nurse check my blood pressure. Asked Adrian about work. He said, quiet. That told me enough. Adrian's days were never quiet. Quiet usually meant other people were being noisy on his behalf. Rebecca came over Wednesday carrying soup and suspicion. She looked at me once. You're planning something. I'm sitting. You have your planning face. What does that even look like? Dad, right before firing someone politely. That's insulting. It's genetic. I showed her the photograph. She read the message on the back twice. Luca Moretti, you know the name. I know Adrian calls him dangerous. Adrian also says decaf tastes the same. Rebecca sat across from me. You're thinking about contacting him. I said nothing. That's a yes. I need answers. You need your own lawyer. I have a lawyer? You have Adrian's lawyer wearing your name tag. That shut me up. I found Luca through public records. The warehouse in the photograph led to an old tenant. That company led to a Rhode Island holding firm. Eventually, I found a Boston security company with the same registered agent. One public phone number. No name. Rebecca bought me a prepaid phone. The cashier looked at us like we were either having an affair or laundering money. Rebecca leaned toward me. Try to look less pregnant and criminal. Very supportive. I'm growing. The man who answered said only yes. I'm looking for Luca Moretti. Silence. Who's asking? Elena Vale. The call ended. 5 minutes later, the prepaid phone rang. Friday, 1 o'clock, Hanover Street. Then a restaurant name. North End. Small, public. Busy enough that disappearing a pregnant woman would create inconvenient paperwork. That was reassuring in a depressing way. Rebecca drove me. You call every 10 minutes. That's not security, that's high school dating. I'm serious. So am I. If anything feels wrong, I leave. No, call me first. Why? So I can say I told you so before we die. The restaurant was nearly empty. Luca was already there. Adrian had described him so often that I had built a monster in my head. The real man looked tired. Expensive coat, no tie, gray at the temples. You came alone. No. His eyes moved toward the window. Your sister. I sat. So you followed me? No. Then how do you know? Because Adrian has had Rebecca watched for years. My stomach dropped. Why? He monitors anyone who can influence you. That sounds paranoid. It is. You expect me to believe you? No. That annoyed me more than persuasion would have. You shouldn't believe me, Luca added. Then why am I here? Because you finally stopped believing him. Fair, I hated that. I placed the photograph on the table. You sent this. Yes. Why did Adrian need you gone before he married me? Luca looked at the photo. 10 years ago, Adrian and I were partners. I know. No. You know his version. Give me yours. We built a logistics operation together. Legal at first. At first, he almost smiled. You sound like your father. I froze. You knew him? I met Robert twice. When? Before you met Adrian. My pulse changed. Keep talking. Your father held voting rights in an old regional shipping structure. Most of the business was broken apart, but some rights survived. Russo Maritime Holdings. Luca looked up. So you found the trust. I found my signature on something I never signed. His eyes dropped. That reaction frightened me. You knew. I knew Adrian intended to amend the structure. Why? Because those voting rights connect to 2 bonded facilities and port access agreements his network depends on. Network. I heard the word. Luca heard me hear it. Adrian's legitimate companies are only the clean layer, he said. Underneath them are freight brokers, security contractors, shell landlords, union intermediaries. Cash moves through all of it. Money laundering. Yes. And intimidation? Luca looked at me. Sometimes money works, sometimes fear is cheaper. My hand went instinctively to my stomach. My child controls part of that? Your child could control the votes Adrian needs to keep rivals from challenging those facilities. So he married me for shares. I didn't say that. You practically did. The shares mattered. What else? You did. I laughed once. Don't. I'm not defending him. My husband left me bleeding. He cheated while I was pregnant. Someone forged my signature. I know. Then don't tell me he loved me too. Luca leaned forward. Fine. Adrian wanted access. Marrying you made that easier. Loving you may have happened anyway. That hurt because it sounded possible, not romantic. Possible. Why did you disappear? I didn't. He told me you ran after stealing. I was charged with fraud, laundering, conspiracy. And the evidence was real. I just didn't create it. Adrian did? He routed transactions through accounts I controlled. When federal attention got close, he handed over books that made me look like the architect. Why didn't you fight? My younger brother Michael took a plea on part of it. How long? 5 years. And your father? Stroke 6 weeks after sentencing. Something in Luca's face shut down. So this is revenge. Yes, at least he admitted it, and I'm leverage. At first, I stood too quickly. The room tilted. Luca rose. Sit down. Don't tell me what to do. You're pale. I'm pregnant. It's part of the branding. I sat because my knees had stronger opinions. Luca reached inside his coat slowly. I tensed. It's paper. Apparently my standards had collapsed enough to appreciate office supplies. He placed an old shareholder agreement between us. My father's name, 8%. Then another signature. Adrian Vale. Witness. Dated 11 months before our first date. I stared at it. He told me he met my father once. He lied. My phone buzzed. Adrian, how's lunch with Rebecca? Luca glanced toward the front window. Don't turn around. Why? One of Adrian's security men just walked past for the second time. My phone buzzed again. Call me. I looked at Adrian's signature. Then at Luca. The affair had made me question my marriage. This made me question its beginning. Maybe Adrian had not wandered into my life. Maybe I had been selected. And if that was true, I needed to know what my father had understood before I ever became Mrs. Vale. Adrian didn't confront me when I got home. That frightened me more than anger would have. He was in the kitchen making pasta. Actually cooking. Garlic in a pan, tomatoes simmering, flour on one cuff. For a second, I wondered whether I had stepped into the wrong version of my life. How was lunch? Fine. With Rebecca? There it was, a normal question with something sharp underneath. Yes, technically true. I had eaten half a roll in her car. Adrian nodded. No accusation, no mention of Hanover Street. What are you making? Pasta. You? I can cook. You can make eggs and terrify restaurant managers. That's cooking adjacent. I almost smiled. Then he smiled too. For the next hour, he acted like the man I remembered. He listened when I complained about bed rest, pulled out my chair, passed me cheese without lecturing me about sodium, then he burned the bread. Smoke curled from the oven. Damn it, I laughed. He stared at the blackened slices. It's rustic. It's evidence. And suddenly we were both laughing. Really laughing. For 10 seconds. Claire disappeared. Luca disappeared. The trust disappeared. Then our daughter kicked. Adrian froze. She moving? I nodded. Can I? That question hurt. He had never needed permission before. I took his hand and placed it against my stomach. Another kick, his whole face softened. Hey, he whispered. Nothing about it looked fake. That was the problem. I still loved him enough to recognize tenderness, and I distrusted him enough to question every piece of it. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't answer. I know that doesn't fix anything. No, I made a mistake. Claire is not a typo. I know. You didn't accidentally sleep with another woman for months. No, and you left me in an ER. His eyes dropped. I panicked. You? Yes. Why? Claire had information about someone moving against us. Us. The family, the business. You chose her. I chose the threat. Useful distinction. It's the truth. I almost asked about Luca. Instead I asked, and the affair? Adrian looked directly at me. No excuse. That worked on me more than it should have. No blaming Claire. No lonely marriage speech. No nonsense about stress. Just no excuse. For the next 4 days, Adrian stayed close. He slept in the guest room because I asked him to. Drove me to follow-up appointments. Cried quietly when the ultrasound technician said our daughter looked strong. 1 tear. He wiped it before he thought I noticed. I noticed everything now. That was exhausting. One night, I found him sitting on the nursery floor holding one of the tiny socks we had bought. Couldn't sleep? He looked up. No. I lowered myself onto the rug. The crib drawer was still backward. You know that's installed wrong. I knew. You absolutely did not. I was waiting to see how long it took you to mention it. 4 months. Marriage requires patience. Marriage apparently requires furniture sabotage. He laughed softly, and there it was again. That pull. For 1 weak, honest moment, I imagined staying. Not forgiving, not forgetting. Just staying long enough to see whether anything could be repaired. Then Adrian's phone rang downstairs. I need to take that. He left. I sat alone. The built-in cabinet beside the window caught my eye. Adrian had been keeping company files there since working from home more often. I knew I shouldn't open it. I also knew my name had appeared on a document I never signed. That ethical debate lasted roughly 3 seconds. Inside were insurance files, property records, medical papers, then a thin black binder. VFT Administration, Vale Family Trust. I opened it, entity charts, trustee permissions, corporate access lists. Then a familiar name, Havenport Consulting LLC. Authorized administrative contact, Claire Bennett. My fingers went cold. Why did Adrian's communications director have access to anything connected to our family trust? I turned the page. Havenport controlled another company. That company held temporary voting authority tied to Russo Maritime Holdings. Then another chart showed a chain of companies I recognized from Luca's explanation. Freight brokers, private security firms, warehouses, port service contractors. The trust was not sitting beside Adrian's empire. It was threaded through it. Then I saw the date Claire had been added. 7 months earlier. 2 weeks after I told Adrian I was pregnant, I heard movement downstairs. I started closing the binder. Then something tucked behind the final page caught my eye. A handwritten note. ERV must remain cooperative until transfer. CB has secondary authority. Do not activate before birth. I stared at my initials. Elena Vale. My husband's footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. I put the note back, returned the binder exactly where I found it, closed the cabinet, slowly, then stood beside the crib with one hand over my daughter. Maybe Adrian was sorry, maybe his tears were real, maybe he loved me. But somewhere in his operation, somebody had reduced me to initials and one instruction. Remain cooperative. That word bothered me more than anything else. Not protected, not consulted, not informed. Cooperative. I understood something then. Adrian's power did not depend on everyone being afraid of him. It depended on everyone playing their assigned role. Dock managers moved containers, lawyers moved signatures, security men moved people. Claire moved information, and apparently I was supposed to move quietly through pregnancy until my daughter was born. I heard Adrian reach the upstairs hallway. Elena? Coming. My voice sounded normal. I was proud of that. I turned off the nursery light and stepped into the hall. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't wondering whether my husband was lying. I knew he was. The only question left was what would happen if I stopped being cooperative. Claire texted me the next morning from an unknown number. We need to talk without Adrian knowing. I stared at the message over a mug of decaf that tasted like hot water with a vague memory of coffee. My first instinct was to delete it. My second was to throw the phone. My third was curiosity. That annoyed me most. I typed, no. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then, please. The woman sleeping with my husband had officially reached the please hear me out stage. Then another message arrived. He is not telling you what the trust is for. That changed the calculation. An hour later, Rebecca dropped me outside a hotel in Seaport. You want me inside? No. That answer has a terrible history. I'll call. You call if she blinks suspiciously. She's a communications consultant, not a cobra. Same profession, better tailoring. Claire was waiting in the lobby. I had seen her at charity dinners, company events, even Christmas drinks at our house. She had hugged me once. That memory came back at exactly the wrong time. Elena. Don't. She stopped. I'm sorry. Don't waste my time. I mean it, that makes it worse. She sat across from me. You slept with my husband. Yes, while I was pregnant. Yes, you called him while I was bleeding in an ER. I didn't know you were there. Convenient. I swear. I stared at her. People sleeping with married men should probably retire that phrase. Her eyes flashed. Good. At least there was a person under all that polish. Fine. Don't believe me. I don't. But listen. I folded my arms. When I started working for Adrian, I wasn't actually working for Adrian. That sentence already irritates me. I was placed near him. By who? Investors who suspected his port companies were hiding criminal revenue. 2 had organized crime ties themselves. 1 was a political donor who wanted Adrian weakened. You were spying on him. Yes, for money? At first. That phrase again. How long? Almost 2 years. And the affair? 4 months. 4 months. Numbers make betrayal physical. They attach themselves to dates. The Cape Cod weekend, the night Adrian rubbed my swollen feet, the afternoon we planned the baby shower. I hated my brain for supplying evidence. You fell in love with him. Claire looked away. Yes, that's humiliating, I know. For both of us. Yes, that honesty almost disarmed me. Almost. What is the trust really for? Claire lowered her voice. The Russo rights give Adrian leverage over 2 bonded warehouses and a voting block in the Port Service Consortium. Those facilities are where his clean freight business and the criminal side overlap. Criminal how? Cash skimming, false invoices, containers rerouted off manifest, protection payments disguised as consulting fees. There it was, the thing nobody around Adrian ever said plainly, a criminal enterprise. Not rumors, not connections, a system. My baby gives him control of that. Your daughter's trust would give him voting leverage he can't own directly without attracting regulatory attention. And Plan B? Claire swallowed. The message you saw wasn't about hurting the baby. Then what? If the pregnancy failed, Adrian planned to keep control through spousal proxies and a competency clause. My chest tightened. Competency? If you resisted, lawyers were preparing to argue you were emotionally unstable after the loss. I stared at her. That was Plan B? Yes. The room seemed colder. Then Claire pulled out an internal email. Subject: succession contingencies. One line had bothered me before. Expected male beneficiary. Alternative lineage verification. What does this mean? Claire looked embarrassed. Adrian lied to the lawyers. He told them you were carrying a boy. He knows it's a girl. I know that now. Why would he do that? Because the old Russo trust language gave a temporary management preference to a male line descendant. My stomach dropped. So my daughter doesn't qualify? She qualifies for ownership. The gender clause only affects who can exercise interim control before adulthood. Who? Claire hesitated. Another Russo descendant. I stared at her. My father had no sons. No acknowledged sons. That word mattered. Acknowledged? Claire pushed another document toward me, a private investigator's report. Robert Russo had fathered a son before he married my mother. The boy was adopted. Now a 42-year-old man named Thomas Rusk lived in Connecticut. I stared at the page. My father had another child. Yes. And Adrian found him. 3 years ago. That explained the timing. Your pregnancy, I said. It wasn't Adrian's. So why did you flinch? Because I was pregnant when Adrian first sent me to verify Thomas Rusk's DNA. I lost the pregnancy a month later. Adrian knew. He never asked about it again. Not his child. Not another heir. Just another reason Claire had confused his attention with care. The mystery clicked into place. Alternative lineage verification means Thomas. Yes, if my daughter was born, Adrian could use her trust. If something happened to the pregnancy, he could pressure Thomas into acting as interim proxy. And if I resisted, he'd call me unstable. Claire nodded. Then I asked the question that mattered most. The night I went to the ER. Why were you meeting Luca? Claire's face changed. I had copied a ledger from Adrian's freight office. Payments, container numbers, shell companies, intimidation money. Enough to show Luca where Adrian buried the old Moretti transactions. And Adrian found out, yes, so you called him. I panicked. He left me because he thought you were about to give Luca the ledger. Yes, not because she was his mistress, not really, because his empire was bleeding. My phone rang. Adrian, where are you? Coffee with Rebecca? You're not supposed to have caffeine. Of all the crimes in our marriage, coffee apparently remained unacceptable. Decaf. A pause. Come home. Why? I have your father's original trust file. Claire went pale. Then Adrian added, don't bring Rebecca. The call ended. Claire leaned toward me. Don't go. I stood. I have to. Why? Because now I finally know what question to ask him. What question? I picked up my coat. Whether my father knew exactly what Adrian was becoming before he died. Adrian was waiting in the study with my father's original trust file. No jacket, no tie. White shirt, sleeves rolled. Robert Russo's initials were embossed into the leather cover. RR, where did you get that? Sit down. I'm pregnant, not obedient. His mouth tightened. Elena? Where? Your father gave it to me. The room went quiet. My father gave you his trust file. Yes, when? Before he died. You told me you barely knew him. I told you what I thought you needed to know. There it was. Not an apology, a governing principle. What did he need from you? Someone who understood the port structure, and somehow that person was you. Yes, 11 months before our first date, his eyes sharpened. You saw the shareholder agreement. I didn't answer. Who showed it to you? He stepped closer. Careful. He stopped. I hated that I needed the word. I hated more that it worked. Adrian opened the folder. My father's handwritten notes, old corporate charts, shareholder agreements, and something else, a letter. Addressed to me. Unopened. My name in my father's handwriting. I reached for it. Adrian put his hand over it. Not yet. I stared at him. You've had a letter from my dead father for 6 years? He asked me to give it to you if the trust ever became contested, and you decided that meant whenever convenient. He trusted me, did he? Adrian's jaw tightened. I pulled the letter free. Inside, my father had written only one page. He warned me that Russo Maritime's remaining voting rights were intentionally fragmented, so no single operator could control the bonded facilities without family consent. Then one sentence stopped me. If Adrian Vale ever asks you to sign authority over those votes, do not do it without independent counsel. He is brilliant, but he confuses control with stewardship. I read that line twice. My father had known. Not everything. Enough. I looked up. You knew he didn't trust you. He respected me. That is not the same thing. He understood what the ports required. What? Bribes? False invoices? Men following my sister? Adrian's expression changed. So did mine. I had said too much. You met Claire. Not a question. I kept my face still. Did you? Another contraction tightened across my abdomen. I grabbed the desk. Adrian moved toward me. I'm fine. Elena, did you forge my signature? No. Did you know it was forged? A pause. I knew the amendment had been processed. That isn't an answer. Another contraction came harder. Then we heard a thud upstairs. Small, wrong, the nursery. We moved at the same time. Adrian reached it first. The door stood open. Cabinet drawers had been emptied across the floor. The black trust binder was gone. So was Luca's photograph. Baby clothes covered the rug. Tiny socks, blankets, a stuffed rabbit my mother had mailed from Florida. Its fabric ear was trapped beneath an overturned drawer. For some reason that was what got me. Someone had gone through my daughter's things. Not mine. Hers. I bent to pick up the rabbit. Pain ripped through me, sharp, deep, then warmth. Too much. I looked down. Blood. Adrian. Everything after that happened fast. The car, hospital doors, a wheelchair, monitors, questions. My daughter's heart rate dipped again, then a familiar voice. Elena? Dr. Naomi Price. She had been on the ER team the first night. Seeing someone familiar almost made me cry. You missed us? She asked. Terrible coffee. I got nostalgic. Keep the jokes. They help. Medication slowed the contractions but didn't stop them. 2 hours later, my obstetrician said the words I had been avoiding. We may need to deliver tonight. I'm not ready. His voice softened. Most people aren't. Later, Adrian stepped out to talk to security. Naomi adjusted the monitor, then glanced toward the door. Your husband's people asked about your medical records. What? They said it was security related. Did you give them access? No. Thank you. She hesitated. What? It's his last name. Vale. I know. You know Adrian? Not personally, but I treated someone years ago who did. My skin prickled. Who? Daniel Moretti. The name hit me immediately. What happened? Car accident, serious internal injuries. He was terrified but not of dying. Of talking. Naomi looked at me. Yes. What did he say? That Vale had set up accounts and that he had taken responsibility because someone threatened Michael. Luca's brother. Did Daniel survive? No. Did anyone document it? Social work. Police. It should still be in the chart. Should. Unless someone obtained a lawful removal or sealing order. Then Adrian came back. Naomi stepped away. What happened? He asked. Nothing. My voice sounded normal. I was proud of that. After Naomi left, Adrian came closer. They found no one at the house, of course. I'm moving you after delivery. Claire's warning. Safer. Where? Newport. No. Elena. No. You don't understand the risk. I understand enough. This is not the time to fight me. I almost laughed. Everyone keeps promising there'll be a better time later. Then the monitor changed. My daughter's heart rate dropped. The room filled instantly. Nurses? Doctors. Movement. Someone said, we're going. My hand reached out before I could stop it. Adrian grabbed it. For 1 second I let him. Not because I forgave him, because I was terrified. They wheeled me toward the operating room. At the doors, Adrian leaned close. I love you. His eyes were wet. Maybe he did. That was what made everything harder. Then the nurse pulled him back. My phone buzzed beside my hip. A message from Luca. Naomi found the ledger. 3 words that explained everything Adrian had abandoned me to protect. Then the screen went dark. The operating room was colder than I expected. That is what I remember most. Not the lights, not the masks, the cold. My teeth chattered while people around me moved with the terrifying confidence of people who had done this hundreds of times. I had never done it once. A nurse squeezed my shoulder. You're doing fine. I nodded. I wasn't. Sometimes lying is useful. Then I heard a cry. Small, angry, perfect. She's here. Everything inside me broke open. My baby? She's breathing. They brought her close. Tiny red face, knit cap, eyes closed. She looked furious. I respected that immediately. "Hi," I whispered. "Sorry about the family." The nurse laughed softly. Then they took her for monitoring. When I woke later, Rebecca was beside me. "She's okay," she said before I could ask. "NICU for observation, breathing on her own." I cried. No embarrassment this time. "Where's Adrian?" "Outside." "Why?" "Because I told him if he came in before you woke up, the hospital would need another trauma team." That sounds legally complicated. I'm comfortable with it. Then I remembered Luca's message. "Where's my phone?" Rebecca handed it over. There was an attachment from an unknown number, a scanned medical record. Daniel Moretti, 6 years earlier. Vehicle collision, internal injuries. Then the note. Patient repeatedly states, Vale set the accounts up. I took responsibility because they threatened Michael. Another entry. Patient requests federal investigator states original ledger copied to Bay Street storage. Then the final line. Visitor arrived identifying himself as family representative. Patient became visibly distressed. Visitor. Adrian Vale. I stared at the screen. Adrian had been there with Daniel, not a rumor. Not Luca's version. A hospital record. Rebecca read over my shoulder. That son of a... Not here. There's a premature baby in this building with more restraint than I have. A nurse came in. "Mr. Vale would like to see you." I took a breath. 5 minutes. Rebecca stared at me. "You just had surgery." "I know. You're medicated." "That may improve the conversation." Adrian walked in looking older. He stayed near the door. "How is she?" "Stable." I saw her through the NICU window. I watched him. "Did you visit Daniel Moretti before he died?" Everything in his face stopped. "There. That was enough." "You did. He was involved in things you don't understand." "Everyone keeps saying that." "Elena, did he take responsibility for your accounts?" "No." "Did he ask for a federal investigator?" Adrian stood. "Who gave you that?" I laughed quietly. "Interesting answer." His jaw hardened. This is Luca." "Partly." That changed him. "Partly? Fear. Small, controlled, real. I'm leaving when I'm discharged." "With me?" "Elena, no. Where are you going?" "That's no longer your decision." His eyes narrowed. "Do not go anywhere with Luca Moretti." "I didn't say I was. I know you met him. No point pretending." "How?" Silence. "Because Rebecca has been followed." His expression answered. I almost laughed. "You've had my sister watched for years." "You don't understand, Luca." "Maybe not. He is using you." "I know." That stopped him. "That's the difference." "What?" He admitted it. Adrian stared. "Luca told me he wanted access to the trust. He wants revenge. He told me not to trust him." I swallowed. "You keep asking me to love you enough not to notice what you are. I am your husband, and you use that sentence like a license." He stepped closer. "If you leave, you put yourself and the baby at risk." "My baby." "Our baby." That hurt. Because he was right, I looked away. "I'm not taking her away from you forever." His shoulders lowered. "I'm taking us somewhere you don't control." 2 days later, I was discharged. Not to Back Bay. Rebecca found a furnished apartment in Cambridge through a friend. Temporary. Secure. Most importantly, not owned by anyone named Vale. Sophia came home 4 days later. We had chosen the name months before. I kept it. I refused to let every good thing become contaminated because Adrian had touched it first. For the first week, I barely slept. Sophia ate every 2 hours. I cried because she wouldn't latch. Then cried because she did. I once put my phone in the refrigerator and spent 10 minutes searching while holding a carton of milk. Rebecca found both. Motherhood was humbling. 3 weeks later, Luca called. "Naomi got the ledger." I sat up. "How?" Daniel's note pointed to an old storage unit under Bay Street. Naomi contacted hospital legal after seeing his chart. The original evidence had never been turned over. "What's in it?" "Container numbers, payments, names. Enough to connect Adrian's freight companies to the old Moretti accounts and current protection payments." "Send it. It needs to stay in chain of custody." Good. For once, someone had learned. We met with my attorney, Rachel Klein, instead of alone. I liked Rachel immediately because she represented me and treated decorative pillows like personal enemies. Luca laid copies on the table. "Nothing gets released without Rachel." I said, "Nothing touches Sophia's trust. Nothing gets used to threaten Adrian privately." Luca frowned. "You're taking away all my hobbies. I'm trying to help you grow. And you don't lie to me." His face changed slightly. "That one may be difficult." "Then leave." He looked at me, then nodded. I agree. The next afternoon, I attended a charity luncheon with Luca. Publicly. Cameras noticed, of course. By dinner, photographs were everywhere. Adrian Vale's wife seen with rival. Outside the hotel, a reporter shouted, "Mrs. Vale, are you with Luca Moretti now?" I stopped, looked directly at the camera. No. The crowd quieted. I'm with myself. Then I walked away. My knees were shaking. My incision hurt. I had breast milk leaking through one side of my dress. Power has terrible timing. But for the first time since the ER, I wasn't waiting for Adrian to decide what happened next. The photographs changed everything. Not because Luca and I were together. We weren't. But Adrian's world understood appearances better than truth. His wife walking beside his enemy in public looked like a declaration of war. The next morning, my phone became unusable. Reporters, lawyers, old friends, women I had met once at fundraisers sending, "Stay strong, Queen." I appreciated the intention. I hated the punctuation. Adrian called 7 times. Claire called twice. Luca called once. I ignored all of them. Rachel sat on the floor of my Cambridge apartment while Sophia slept against my chest. She reviewed the ledger, trust documents, digital signature report, Daniel's chart, and my father's letter. "This is enough to interest federal prosecutors," she said. "To arrest Adrian? Slow down. I'm not known for patience." I noticed. The forensic report confirmed my trust amendment had been signed from an IP address inside Adrian's Boston office. Not Napa. Not me. Then Rachel's assistant called. "Claire Bennett is downstairs." "No." I looked at Sophia, then changed my mind. "Actually, yes." Claire came up carrying a laptop bag. No makeup, red eyes. Rebecca appeared from the bedroom. "So this is Claire." Claire's face tightened. Rebecca studied her. Smaller than I expected. "Rebecca." "What? I built her up." Claire surprised me. "That's fair. Maybe civilization had a chance." Claire opened the laptop. "Adrian locked me out of the company." "What happened?" "He knows I gave you information." She showed us files copied before her access vanished. Security reports, payment instructions, emails, then one folder. Contingency. Inside was an exchange between Adrian, his CFO, and the trust attorney. If ERV refuses post-delivery authorization, initiate competency review and request temporary fiduciary control. I read it twice. Competency review? Rachel leaned closer. "They plan to argue you are incapable of managing the trust." "Based on what?" Claire answered. "Postpartum depression." I stared at her. I hadn't even given birth. "I know." There were draft declarations from 2 private physicians. Neither had treated me. One described emotional volatility. Another cited impaired judgment following traumatic delivery. They had written my breakdown before I had one. I laughed once. "That's efficient." Rachel's face went cold. Then another email appeared. Adrian had instructed security to document my meetings with Luca, my argument with Claire, and even the fact that I had temporarily stopped taking calls from his office. "He's building the competency case now," Rachel said. My stomach tightened, not metaphorically. What can he do? If he persuades a probate judge, there's an emergency affecting Sophia's trust. He can request temporary authority while the court reviews capacity. So he could still get control. Temporarily. Temporary was plenty, especially for Adrian. Then Claire opened another file, a DNA report. Thomas Rusk. My father's unacknowledged son. The alternative lineage mystery was no longer theoretical. Adrian had already found him, tested him, and prepared documents naming him as an emergency interim proxy if my branch of the trust became unavailable or legally impaired. "Does Thomas know?" Claire shook her head. "He thinks Adrian hired him for a genealogy matter related to an inheritance." "So Adrian has 2 routes," Rachel nodded. "Challenge your capacity, then use Thomas as interim family proxy." I felt sick. Adrian hadn't built Plan B. He had built Plans B, C, and D. Claire swallowed. "There's more." "Of course." "Security was told to locate Thomas yesterday." "Why?" "Because Adrian knows the federal exposure is getting worse." Rachel closed the laptop. "We go to prosecutors now." My phone rang. "Luca." Rachel looked at me. "Answer." I did. "You need to move." I closed my eyes. "I am getting tired of men opening conversations like that." "Elena, Adrian's people picked up Thomas Rusk outside Hartford." My blood went cold. "Picked up?" "They convinced him to get into a car. We don't know where they took him." Rachel stood immediately. "Ask Luca how he knows." I did. "My people were watching Thomas too." I went silent. "What?" Luca exhaled. "I knew about Thomas before I ever contacted you." The room changed. How long? Years. You knew Adrian was interested in my family before he married me. Yes, and you watched. I thought he would expose himself. I almost laughed. You watched me marry him because my marriage was useful evidence. Silence. Yes. My anger became clean. So Adrian approached me with an agenda, and you let it happen because revenge mattered more. Yes. When you sent that photograph, were you protecting me? At first, no. There it was again. At first, I wanted leverage. Through me. Yes. And now I want you out. I am out. Not yet. You don't get to decide that, I know. No, Luca, none of you know. I ended the call. Rachel watched me. You okay? No. Good, that means you're paying attention. I handed her Claire's laptop. Everything goes to federal prosecutors. Everything. Luca, too. You understand you'll lose control of the investigation. I thought about that. No, I'll lose control of the outcome. That was different. For months, every person around me had decided which truth I was allowed to know. I was done with private truth. That afternoon, we sat in a federal office with fluorescent lights and ugly carpet. No dramatic windows. Apparently justice had terrible interior design. I handed over the ledger, the trust amendment, Daniel's record, Thomas's DNA file. Claire turned over her laptop, and then a prosecutor said something that made my stomach drop. Mrs. Vale, we have another problem. What? Your husband filed an emergency petition this morning alleging you are medically and emotionally unfit to administer your daughter's trust. Rachel swore under her breath. The prosecutor continued. He is also requesting temporary family proxy authority. Thomas, Adrian had moved first. And for the first time since leaving him, I realized telling the truth might not be enough. I was going to have to prove I was still competent enough to own my own life. Adrian's petition was brilliant. I hated him for that. It included hospital records showing 2 emergency admissions, statements from security staff describing me as agitated, photographs of me with Luca, a private physician's opinion that postpartum trauma could impair judgment, and messages where I had refused Adrian access to Sophia. Except I hadn't refused him access. I had refused his control. Apparently legal documents are very good at removing verbs. For 48 hours, I stopped thinking about federal charges. All I cared about was Sophia's trust. Because if Adrian won temporary authority, even for a week, Rachel believed he could move voting proxies, appoint replacement managers, and create enough corporate confusion to take months to unwind. Can he take Sophia? I asked. Rachel looked at me. Not from this petition. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until then. Good. But he can use your medical history against you. Fantastic. Giving birth has excellent customer benefits. Rachel did not laugh. That scared me. Then Naomi called. She had heard through hospital legal that Adrian's attorneys subpoenaed portions of my records. I can testify, she said. To what? That you were oriented, competent, and making informed decisions during both admissions. Also that Adrian's private security requested unauthorized access to your chart. That mattered. Rebecca testified too. So did my obstetrician. Then Claire offered something none of us expected. The original email ordering the competency strategy. Not the copy. The server-side export showing it had been drafted 6 weeks before I gave birth. Adrian had planned my alleged instability before there was anything to observe. Rachel smiled when she saw it. It was not a friendly smile. I almost feel sorry for his lawyer. You don't? No. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Adrian sat across the courtroom in a dark suit, looking exactly like the man I had once trusted to handle everything. His attorney described him as a concerned father. My attorney described the petition as premeditated financial coercion. Then Rachel introduced the email. The judge read it twice. The room went very quiet. Adrian finally looked at me. I held his gaze. For once, he had no expression I recognized. The petition was denied. The court appointed an independent fiduciary over Sophia's trust pending the federal investigation. No Adrian. No me. No Thomas. Neutral control. I had never been so happy to lose authority. Outside the courthouse, Rachel's phone buzzed. She read the message. What? Federal agents found Thomas. Where? A property in Newport. Adrian's safe property. My skin went cold. Thomas was unharmed. But he told investigators Adrian's men had pressured him to sign emergency proxy documents and warned him that refusing would expose an old tax issue and cost him his job. Intimidation, coercion, another piece. Then Claire's ledger gave prosecutors the rest. Container numbers matched freight records. Protection payments matched shell company invoices. Daniel Moretti's old accounts connected directly to Adrian-controlled entities. Several warehouse managers agreed to cooperate. One union intermediary flipped, then another. Adrian's empire didn't collapse in one dramatic night. It started shedding people. That was more realistic and crueler. Men who had called him family began hiring defense attorneys before lunch. 3 weeks later, Adrian was arrested outside his seaport office. No midnight raid, no shootout. 2 federal agents walked beside him while cameras waited across the street. By noon, his face was everywhere. Money laundering, wire fraud, forgery, witness intimidation, obstruction, conspiracy involving trust assets, racketeering-related charges tied to the port network followed. I read the indictment at my kitchen table while Sophia slept nearby. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. Rebecca stood behind me. "You okay?" "I don't know." "Reasonable." I found Daniel Moretti's name, then Thomas, then my own. There is something surreal about seeing your marriage summarized in numbered criminal counts. Claire entered a cooperation agreement. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy and unauthorized access. Her assistants reduced her sentence, but didn't erase it. She lost her career. Her professional circle disappeared almost overnight. For a while, I was angry she got a deal. Rachel reminded me that cooperation was how cases like Adrian's survived. Justice is not theater. It could use better lighting. It could use fewer opinions from you. I'm the client. You're exhausting. I liked her more every month. Luca's situation was messier. He had committed crimes too, different ones: concealed ownership, improper payments, financial operations built to weaken Adrian. Revenge had not turned him into a saint. He surrendered control of 2 companies, paid substantial penalties, and cooperated. When he called afterward, I almost didn't answer. Almost. "How much did you lose?" "Enough." "Good." He laughed softly. "I deserved that." "Yes." A pause. Then, "Are you happy?" I looked at Sophia. "No." He went quiet. "I think I'm getting there. That sounds more believable." "Elena, I'm sorry. I didn't rescue him from the silence. For watching. For using you. For deciding revenge mattered more than warning you. Thank you." "That's it? What did you want? A medal?" "No." "Good, we're out." He laughed, then his voice softened. "Eventually I meant what I told you." "Eventually is the problem." "I know. Maybe he did." Adrian's trial began 7 months after Sophia was born. I testified on the 4th day. He sat at the defense table in a navy suit. For half a second, my body recognized him before my mind did. My husband, the man who painted the nursery, the man who burned bread, the man who held my hand through fertility treatments, the man who left me bleeding because a ledger mattered more. Human beings are inconveniently capable of being more than one thing. The prosecutor asked, "Mrs. Vale, did you ever authorize your husband to control your daughter's inherited voting rights?" "No." Adrian looked up. Our eyes met. For the first time, he looked ordinary, not harmless, just ordinary. I had spent years mistaking certainty for size. Maybe power was mostly agreement, people agreeing not to ask, agreeing to be afraid, agreeing to stay quiet. I wasn't agreeing anymore. The jury returned guilty verdicts on most counts. Not all, enough. And when the foreperson said guilty, for the final time, I didn't smile. I just closed my eyes, because justice did not feel like revenge. It felt like finally being allowed to stop fighting. Adrian received a substantial federal prison sentence. The judge ordered forfeiture of assets tied to the criminal enterprise. Warehouses, shell companies, investment accounts, properties I had never known existed. The Back Bay townhouse was sold too. I kept nothing I could not trace cleanly. That decision cost me money. A lot of money. I slept better. Claire received a shorter sentence because she had cooperated. When I saw her outside court months later, we stopped several feet apart. She looked older. So did I. "I'm sorry," she said. This time I let her finish. "I know. I loved him. I know. That doesn't excuse anything." "No," she nodded. Then she looked toward Sophia, who was asleep against Rebecca's shoulder. "I hope she never knows any of this." I thought about that. "No, someday she'll know enough." Claire looked surprised. "Why?" "Because secrets are how men like Adrian build power." Claire lowered her eyes, then walked away. I didn't forgive her that day. Maybe forgiveness is overrated when people treat it like a deadline. Some things don't need to disappear, they just need to become lighter. Thomas Rusk eventually called me, my half-brother. Even thinking those words felt strange. We met once at a coffee shop outside Hartford. He was taller than my father. Same hands, though. That bothered me in a way I couldn't explain. He had grown up with good parents and no knowledge of Russo Maritime. Adrian had pulled him into our mess because DNA made him useful. I don't want the trust, Thomas said. I know. I don't want money. That may be the healthiest thing anyone connected to my family has ever said. He laughed. It sounded a little like Dad. We agreed not to force anything. No instant sibling bond. No dramatic family reunion. Just two adults exchanging phone numbers and admitting biology had surprised both of us. Sophia's trust remained under independent management until she reached adulthood. No Adrian, no Luca, no Thomas, unless Sophia someday chose otherwise. No one who had treated inheritance like a weapon. My father's remaining interests in Russo Maritime were separated from Adrian's companies through court-supervised restructuring. I sold my personal stake in several connected businesses. Rachel nearly had a spiritual experience over the paperwork. "What are you doing with the money?" Rebecca asked. "Paying you back for food. You owe me $14. You tracked it? Obviously. I bought a smaller house near Cambridge. 3 bedrooms, old wood floors. A kitchen drawer that stuck whenever Boston got humid. The first time it happened, I laughed so hard, Sophia laughed too. No private security office. No driver outside. No men in dark coats reporting my movements to my husband. I installed 1 doorbell camera. Healing is not the same thing as becoming stupid. Naomi sent a card on Sophia's first birthday. Nothing dramatic, just glad she kept fighting. I kept it. Daniel Moretti's old statement became part of the federal record, and Michael Moretti finally received a formal review of his old case. It didn't give him back 5 years, nothing could, but his conviction was eventually vacated after prosecutors acknowledged key evidence had been concealed and manipulated. Luca called me the day it happened. Neither of us said much. Some victories arrived too late to feel clean. 14 months after the ER, Luca visited. He brought Sophia a wooden sailboat. "No diamonds?" I asked. "I'm financially humbled." Finally. We sat on the back steps while Sophia attacked the grass with both hands like landscaping had personally offended her. Luca looked different without the armor of his old life. Quieter, still complicated, still dangerous in ways I refused to romanticize. That mattered. "Dinner?" he asked. "With me." I understood the concept. "I'm clarifying." "No," he nodded. "Okay." Then I added, "Ask again someday." He looked surprised. "Someday? Don't ruin it." He smiled. I didn't promise him anything. He didn't promise me anything either. That felt healthier than every promise Adrian had ever made. A few weeks later, I took Sophia for a walk along the Charles. Cold afternoon, bright sky, the kind of Boston day that makes the city look cleaner than it deserves. I sat on a bench and adjusted her blanket. An older woman beside me smiled. "She's beautiful?" "Thank you." "What's her name?" "Sophia." "And you?" For years, the answer had come automatically. Elena Vale. The name opened doors, then closed them behind me. I looked at the river. "Elena Russo." The woman smiled. "Nice to meet you, Elena." That was it. No recognition, no scandal, no husband, no enemy, just my name. There were still nights when I woke angry, still moments when I saw that ER door closing, still days when I wondered which parts of my marriage had been real. Eventually I stopped demanding one answer. Adrian loved me. Adrian used me. Both could be true. Luca helped me. Luca used me too. Both could be true. Claire betrayed me. Claire also helped expose the machine she had once protected. Human beings are inconvenient that way. The truth is rarely clean enough to frame. 2 years after the ER, I found my old hospital bracelet in a box I still hadn't unpacked. For a moment, I heard the monitors again. Then Sophia ran into the room wearing one rain boot and carrying a wooden spoon. "Mommy, pancakes. It's 4 in the afternoon. Pancakes." She had inherited my negotiating style. Unfortunately, she had improved it. I put the bracelet back in the box. Not because it hurt too much, because it didn't anymore. That surprised me. That evening, we burned the first batch of pancakes. Sophia laughed because I got flour in my hair. There was no security detail outside, no hidden agreement waiting for my signature, no man deciding which truth I was allowed to know. For years I thought legacy meant what people left behind. Money, names, property, power. Now I knew better. Sometimes legacy is the thing you choose not to pass on.